How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. And in the pod, we're going to be talking with Greg Harper. He is a new team member of the RTS clan, so I'm sure you guys have heard many episodes from them in the past. Great team, obviously, and Greg is also a really great guy. Good swimmer, deep thinker. We talk about a lot of really cool things. Really appreciate him taking the time to make it happen. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Greg Harper.
When we were talking in New Zealand or no? Or you were in your tiny home then?
No, so we moved out here right before that, I guess, October 26th, we came out here. The thought was, because she took a job out here, the thought was we were going to move out here, find a place, kind of get somewhat settled, and then right before Thanksgiving, we went back east, and we were there for like a month until we went to New Zealand, spent some weeks there, and then we just got back. So we've been back here now for literally today's the 31st day.
Oh, nice. Wait, so where are you living exactly?
Yeah, so we moved to Redding, Northern California.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I know Redding.
Yeah, you ever trained out here?
I mean, I'm from Walnut Creek, which is like, it's like near Oakland, and that it's in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Redding, we used to have swim meets. I've been to a couple of swim meets in Redding in my youth.
Yeah. The outdoor pool.
Yeah, just wait for that summer. It'll get you. No, but you're like close to the mountains and stuff too. It's actually not a bad like spot in California. I mean, it gets super hot in the summer, like ridiculously hot.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of the state, to be honest. So
yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it. A lot of people have said, "Oh, you're gonna dread the summers," but so being back in the southeast, it's like 95 to 100 and 100% humidity. So you step outside and it's like you're sweating. So I'm looking forward to seeing
different.
How that.
Yeah, it'll be 115, but it's not like humid, so it's not. It's probably similar actually.
Yeah.
That's
one thing
cool.
I've really actually started to really like about it here is just the fact when I'm in the sun, I feel really warm. And then as soon as you like get into the shadow or like the crevice of a mountain or something, it's like freezing cold. So that's really different for me. So.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Nice.
Well, Greg, first things first, just got to say thank you so much for making the time for coming on the pod.
I'm glad I could not bail on this one and we can get it going.
Yeah, for sure. You got a legit mic, so that's fun.
Yeah, I have my own little podcast too that I do. So
okay. Tell me about your podcast.
It's called Swim Sets by the Pool.
Okay.
And it's me and my buddy Nate Cohen. He's also a pro triathlete. He lives in California. Yeah. And we basically just talk about swimming. They're like 20-minute episodes. But the goal is we get a swim workout that we see like on a kickboard or something, take a photo, or someone sends it to us. Yeah. And then we run through the workout and we kind of say what we like about it, what we might change, who this might be for. And then at the end, we kind of have this like vetted workout that we might change a few things. And then, you can just go in the show notes and grab the workout and take it to your swim if you need some swim-spiration, as we call it. And we give a quick tip at the beginning and then like a hot take or something at the end. People love those things these days. Like you see Pro Tri News and their hot takes and it's like more hot takes. Yeah. But yeah, we just talk about swimming and we really like it. And we come from completely different backgrounds. Like I've been a swimmer my whole life. Like I was good when I was a kid and he started in community college and has got pretty good. So yeah, it's like a good balance of, so I know you're on the ups and ups. So yeah, take a little listen. You might get some tips. And if you need a workout, you can just kind of go to the YouTube or Spotify or whatever and get a workout.
Yeah, check it out. How long you been doing it?
Probably like 6 months or so. We probably got like 30 or 40, maybe like 30 or something. Like in every week we haven't missed a week in 6 months or so. So we've been pretty consistent and we've seen some. Yeah, so we had like a YouTube like almost get 1,000 views like kind of recently. So it's kind of big for us. So we're like, oh, cool. Yeah. I think people generally like it and we just like doing it and it's like low key. I'm not doing any of the behind the scenes work. Like Nate and his wife are kind of doing it. So it's like, it's kind of low stress. I just go and talk about swimming, which I could do all day anyway. So it's been fun. Yeah, no,
100%. So when I first started this podcast a year and a half ago, the only way that it was made possible really in the beginning was because of a behind the scenes guy. Like he let me use a place in his house, had all the equipment, he did the editing, and I just paid him honestly like a really cheap fee, and then he did it all and distributed it all. I was like, wow, this is great. Like all I have to do is talk. That's the easiest part ever.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Well, I've listened to a few of the episodes and you've done, I remember I went out to breakfast with Chase McQueen and Tyler Smith one morning, and they were like about to pop off to record that episode you guys did with Big Mets, or maybe you did two of them. So that was a solid one. But yeah, it seems like you've got a lot of good people and a lot of good stories on the podcast so far. So that's pretty cool. I'm sure you've learned a lot and had some interesting conversations.
Yeah, thanks, man. No, I have learned a ton. Every day I'm learning more. I come from being a younger mindset. I was very rigid, I think, in the way that I approached life, and almost as a means of necessity of survival, if you will. Like, so I just was like, this is how it's going to be, and that's how I kind of went through life. And as I started to get a little bit older, I started to appreciate like the one-on-one conversations with people, like before I did a podcast. And yeah, that trend has continued. It's really opened my eyes to just more experiences and how people live life, and I think there's a lot of value in that for me personally. So selfishly, even if no one was listening, I'd probably still be doing it just because it's a great education, honestly.
No, that's good. Yeah, and everyone, I feel like as you get older, you kind of maybe give people the benefit of the doubt more, and you really try to see things from all sides, right? When you're being less rigid, it's like everyone's got a story to tell, like essentially, and it's like they're having a rough day. It's like something else is going on, right? Like, so that's probably a good way to view your life, really. Yeah. And I feel like everyone you can get in high school, it's like people are like, oh, clicky and all this, and then it's like, oh, post-college, everyone's like, oh, remember that guy in high school? Yeah, he's super chill now, or whatever it is, right? Everyone just kind of chills out, it seems like.
Yeah, we grow up and figure out what's actually important, or start to. Some people still stay in high school mode, though, man. It's like, I've met some of my friends that are like, I go back to a reunion or whatever, or whatever they call those things, the yearly things, like 5-year, 10-year, and it's like, oh, you haven't moved on from that. And it's kind of sad, honestly, but it happens.
Yeah, that's very true. It's always good to like get out. I mean, I lived in the same area a lot of my life, and now I've been in New York for the last 2 years, which is like completely different side of the country from all my family. And I was definitely hesitant to come out here, but now that I'm out here, it's like, yeah, it still sucks at times. Like, I kind of wish I was in California, but I mean, they always say there's no growth in comfort, and like I agree with that, like to a degree. Like, it's good being comfort in like your self and family, but grow. Like, it's nice just being in New York. It's like a completely different culture and stuff, and it's like I've enjoyed that, and I'm kind of glad I got out of the Bay Area where I've been like most of my life. Yeah.
How long did you say you've been out in New York now?
I said 2 years. It's been like 18 months or something. Yeah, a year and a half or so.
Yeah. You think you'll stay there for the foreseeable future?
I think so. Yeah, like my fiance, she's from New York. Okay. So yeah, her roots are over here. So in the end, someone's gonna kind of sacrifice like where to live. But like, I feel like I still want to convince her a little bit. But like when I came out here, I was like, I can stay forever, and I think I can totally do that. And it's not always, in the end, we'll have our own family too. So it's like, as you get older, it's like, yes, my sisters and their kids are in California, and I miss them and my family or my folks. But, in 20 years, we'll have our kids, and they'll be teenagers or whatever. So it's like, well, then that's where your roots are, right? So yeah. It's hard though, it's like your parents get older and stuff too, and it's like, well, yeah, they're gonna get older, and being there last year sometime, in the next however long, and then you're like, shoot, I'm kind of far away. So yeah, it's an interesting balance. But yeah, it's nice over here, really. It seems like you guys are kind of settling down away from your folks and her folks.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to call it settling down. So the real story is, for the past several years, I moved to this college town in 2011. It was in Tennessee. It was basically in Chattanooga. And I had been there ever since, up until October. So 12, 13 years or whatever it is. And I was just kind of sick of the area. Just like, I go to the local Walmart, and I know every single person. And it's like, I can't escape that. And there's something to be said about that mindset in itself. I don't know if it's particularly healthy, but I was really just wanting to go on an adventure. So I was like, for years, planting the seeds in my wife, and she went back to school to further education, become a nurse practitioner. So we did that thing, just finished it in last May, and I was like, let's do it. So she started applying for places out west, and we were really close to moving to Bend, Oregon, actually. Decided against that, and then she found this fellowship program here in Northern California that's just really amazing in terms of just like helping her move forward. So it's a 2-year program. We'll probably have our first kids out here, but she has the dream of working with her father, who's a nurse, or excuse me, a family practice physician, and she wants to be like an NP, working kind of under him or with him. So we'll see if we plant roots or not. But she really wants to go back, and honestly, it's like a 5,000 person town where we can build on their family farm property. So it's not a bad situation by any means. For a while I was like, no, I don't want to live there, and then now I've kind of come back to a place where like, no, that'd be a great place to raise kids probably and get away from the craziness. So
yeah, that's true. And like you're out for now, so that's kind of how I feel. Like I'm in New York, and it's like I could be here for 3 years. I'd be happy going back, but sometimes you kind of have that, especially when you're younger. You're like, I remember growing up in Walnut Creek, which is like this amazing place to live. Like that's why my parents picked it. It's like open space, like it's good schools, all that type of stuff. And you're like 18, you're just like, God, who would stay here? This fucking sucks here. And then you like get closer to 30, you start thinking about your family. You're like, oh yeah, I could come back. Sounds like a nice little spot.
Yeah. Experience and maturity does a lot to our frontal lobes, doesn't it?
Wait, how old are you?
I am 32.
Oh, okay, nice. I just turned 33 like a couple weeks back, so
nice.
We're about the same age.
Yeah, happy late birthday. How do you feel like the wisdom of your 30s has been just seeping in?
Yeah, I feel like it was like the late 20s where my mindset kind of shifted a bit.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to get into triathlon again. Like I had done it a bit as a youth and a little bit in college, but it was like kind of during COVID, and I was like kind of in my late 20s, and I was like, if I don't give this a real shot, I feel like I'm going to regret it. So I should kind of go for it. And now I've been doing it maybe like 4 years, and I got a few more years in me probably, hopefully. Yeah. And
at least.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah, if I can make sense. If it, I had another job and I kind of lost that job, so I'm like, I got to make it work financially too, especially as you get older, and I'm getting married at the end of the year too, so like things are a little more serious, you can't just like, it's not just me anymore.
Just
I'm
wing
thinking
it.
about.
Yeah, sleep on someone's floor for 6 months.
Yeah. Yep. So that's how I'm going with it.
Sweet, man. Well, I want to get to that, and we're going to wrap it around, but I'd love to kind of go back a bit first. We'll keep somewhat of a chronological order. If we kind of bounce around, that's totally fine.
Okay.
But the first question, to kind of give context to what's going to come in the further conversation, is outside of triathlon and swimming, because I know those are two big identity pieces of you, who would you say that Greg is?
That's a good question. I would say I am someone who just kind of doesn't take things too seriously and just tries to like enjoy what I'm doing, I guess. I mean, it's kind of like a cliche answer, but I feel like I'm like a loyal person to like my friends and family, and I just kind of enjoy like the small laughs and the little things, I feel like, in life, because those things are really what like brings meaning to all the stuff you're doing. And my identity is really tied up as an athlete as well, and sometimes it's hard to like, you can't put your self-worth in your like athletic results. So I think that just trying to like be a good person outside of that, and sometimes you are not always, and like making amends or like, hey, apologizing when some you don't do things that were quite right. I think that's something I've really honed in on. And outside of those two sports, I just think also movement is like kind of medicine, and that's really kind of my dad always says this, he was a pro triathlete in the 80s, and he's 70 years old now, and he's been around the sport a long time, but he just says 15% happier, and it's just kind of about moving your body and exercising with friends and all that type of stuff. So I think just trying to be like a positive light in the world is like something I strive for. And I guess that's who I am outside of sport. I also try to, just try to be like a compassionate and like I said earlier, kind of give people like benefit of the doubt. So those are kind of, I guess, some of my values outside the sport. And as of now, I'm really just honed in on the sport. So I don't do a whole lot else besides cook and drink athletic brewing.
Yes,
I'm a good triathlete now.
Nice, I love it. So You mentioned that you grew up in, forgive me, it's in California, Chestnut? Is that what you said it was?
No, Walnut Creek. That's
Walnut
funny,
Creek.
Chestnut.
I don't know why.
Wrong nut, dog.
I was like, which one? Which one was it? Pistachio? I don't know. So, Walnut Creek.
Yeah.
Your parents chose that area. Was it for work, or was it for just purely the wide open spaces, raise kids? What do you think?
Yeah, it's like my dad went to Hastings Law School, which is like in San Francisco. Okay. So the East Bay is like a very like suburban place that people go and raise kids. It was really close to like Shell Ridge Open Space, which connects to like Mount Diablo. And my dad was, he's loves running and stuff. So he literally picked our house based on like proximity to trails. Nice. And it's also like a great master's swim program. There's like 5 practices a day. They've been members for 30 or 40 years. Like I grew up swimming in the same pool. So kind of all of that and things that they like to do, but good schools. I think that's just kind of why they chose it. It was just like a nice suburban place and it had values that my parents like to do, Mm-hmm. I mean, not values, but, recreational things. Sure. And they both swim masters. And my dad was competing as a triathlete after he retired from a pro for a number of years as well. And so I think that's kind of why they settled down in that area. Yeah.
Do you have siblings?
Yep. 2 older sisters.
Okay. So there's some dynamic there. Tell me about your sisters.
I have an older one who's 5 years older, Kirsten, and my sister Shelly is 2 years older, and both swimmers and really kind of paved the way for me in terms of kind of what we all do, like, had good grades and went to college for swimming. And I swam with Shelly in college, actually. I mean, she was 2 years older, but we both went to Cal, UC Berkeley we had overlapping years. And yeah, they're both around there now too. But yeah, I guess Shelly and I were really crazy competitive against each other because when it's a girl and a guy and they're like 2 years apart, like the athletic rivalry is like really similar. So it's like I'm 8, she's 10, I'm 10, she's 12. It's like our levels were really close. Yeah. So we used to like would battle on the basketball court and like we would be at each other's throats sometimes, like just competitive nature. Yeah. Obviously not like that anymore at all. But that's and then Kirsten was she was just a bit older, so she was more like I'm in high school and I'm like in elementary school, so it's not quite the same. But yeah, still close with both of them, and they all have little kids now too. So, I'm an uncle times 5 actually. Wow. Yep. So they're doing the whole picket fence American dream with the fams. But yeah.
Are they on the West Coast as well, or still?
Yeah. Kirsten lives like 2 minutes away from my parents, and Shelly lives about 90 minutes. So they're all in that. She lives in El Dorado Hills. So it's like, it's like near Sac, not quite Redding, but close. Yeah. Nice.
Pretty area. So 5, uncle times 5. I'm an uncle times 1, soon to be
nice.
2. So the first time, I was going to meet my little nephew at the hospital, my sister asked me if I wanted to come, and I actually started to tear up because I didn't think I would. It's just such a different feeling. But after 5, what are you feeling? Does it get more intense, or what was your experience?
Well, I mean, the family vacations get more intense, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, in terms of emotionally, it was hard to leave going across the country. I had some really sad moments, but in the end, I see them, still a few times a year and everything. Mm-hmm. And I'll have my own kids too. We can still be close, but yeah, I mean, there's no family. It's funny when you have a bunch of kids and you go on vacation, it's maybe you go to work and you don't see your kids, but then all of a sudden you're on vacation, you're with your kids 24/7. And all of a sudden there's 2 families, 5 kids. Christmas this year, we had everyone there and it was freaking hectic, man. I mean, the parents are I go out for a 5-hour bike ride and come back and I'm pretty tired, but I'm everyone else, he seems way more tired than me because they've been entertaining these little shits for 5 hours. But yeah, everyone's good. It's fun dynamics. My sister has 3 girls, and my other sister, Shelly, has 2 boys. So it's when the girls are just together, they're just girls. And then you throw in the boys, and then all of a sudden,
pandemonium.
the level goes way up. So yeah, you'll see how the dynamics between the genders or things go as time goes on too. It's pretty funny.
What are the ages of your nephews and nieces?
It's like range. It's almost like staggered, like year. So it's like 7, 4.5, 2.5, and then that's Kirsten's kids, the girls, and the boys are like in between. They're like almost 6 and 4 now. So it's almost like every year there was a kid or so. Yeah, so it's just like a spread of 5 years over 5 kids. So it's
You think you're gonna add to the mix before too terribly long?
I think so. Yeah, we'll definitely add to the mix at some point here. Yeah. I feel like next year we're getting married in August and stuff. So yeah, I mean it's all around the corner and it's definitely on the forecast. And you said you were. I mean, it seems like the same for you, huh?
Yeah, we've been married almost 8 years. It'll be 8 in June. And the plan was the 5-year plan. Obviously, school happened and whatnot. So now the thought is, okay, halfway through the year, like we're going to make it happen. So start actually planning for it. That would put her in, she's a year and a half through the program and she'll take some maternity leave and all that. So yeah, it'll be fun. Everyone tells me I'm crazy, but I kind of just hope we have twins or a triplet and just like get it done with one foul swoop, like be really intense
crazy.
For a
no
while.
One says that.
I know. I like crazy, and maybe if that happens and we're 6 weeks in and I haven't slept in 4 days and I'm contemplating not living on this earth any longer, maybe that'll change, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All the friends that like my older friends who are like 40 or something, they're all just like, don't ruin your life yet. Don't ruin like and they're all just like half kidding, but half not. It's like the joys of parenting,
Mm-hmm. So speaking of parenting, who do you think that you're more like, your mom or your dad?
That's a good question. I feel like I'm more like my dad, kind of like athletically, but like kind of more like emotionally like my mom a little bit. Yeah, I mean, my dad was like an athlete his whole life, but I think my mom and I have like similar senses of humor and like I think like intellectually like curious about things in a similar way. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like my sister Kirsten, I feel like falls into that. People say we look alike, and I feel like us three are kind of similar, and then Shelly and my dad are kind of similar. But yeah, so it got the best of everything, right?
Yeah.
My mom's super smart too. She's like a veterinarian, and she's a great vet. She could have been a great doctor or something, right? Yeah. But she's a vet, and she kind of passed down at least a few of the smarts to me. So I'm not just a dumb athlete over here.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. No, of course not. So with like the decisions that you make and the way that you operate, kind of your paradigm in your world, would you consider yourself more of like a gut reactionary decision maker, a little bit more emotional, or are you like, oh, I'm going to switch over here to full logic and just like think about that stuff later?
Definitely a little more emotional, I would say, kind of like gut. But I feel like as you get older, you try to use that, but then also bring logic more into it, like instead of just reacting too quickly answer. Right. Yeah, exactly. So I feel like that's good, and like I like that, but then you got to throw the logic in. That's, you find a partner who kind of compliments you too, and like sometimes I'll have emotional or gut reactions to things or something, or I want to react in some way, and Katie's like, no, you need to like bring it down. I'm like, okay. I'm like, but it's just, well, then I can talk about it. I'm like, it's just swimming. Let me just say this hot take or something. But, she's like, hey, you can't just be a dick or something. I'm just like,
sit on
okay.
it for a minute. Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, you're right. So I'm glad that she, I found someone who, keeps you in check a little bit, and you compliment each other. Well, I think like that's a valuable asset, and like a partner, like a life partner. Someone who makes 100%. You better, right? Yeah. Yeah.
The yin and yangs, or the light and dark, however you want to look at it, the evening out, the acid and the base. Yeah, because it always has been so intriguing to me that when I am in an emotional state and I have it in my mind what the right answer or solution is to that problem or whatever it is, an argument, you name it, it always seems so true in the moment. But then, my wife's, actually, maybe you should wait before posting that, or wait before, calling your sister back or whatever it is.
No, it's so true. And it seems so you're like, oh, of course that's like the answer in your own mind. But yeah, you just need like a little bit of perspective. To kind of, that's an interesting way to look at it.
That nervous system reset. A couple deep breaths.
Yeah.
So for you, like growing up, it seems to me from the outside looking in that your path was pretty well destined to become at least some level of swimmer. So I'm curious for you, when you were growing up, at what age was that like a thing of like, oh, I have to go do this, and now, oh, I want to go do this, or like, this is what I'm gonna sink some of my discipline into?
I mean, it started super early, and it was never like I need to do this or anything. Like, I think my parents did a really good job of they exposed us to a lot, and we just found what we liked. And yeah, my sister swam, so I've been, when your older siblings are, oh, we're around the pool, and then I'm like 2 and I'm around the pool, and then I was on a swim team at age 4. I just loved it. Like, I had so much fun. And then, when I was 6, I was like good, and when I was 8, I was very, very good. So when it was like, oh, you want to swim year round now that you're 8, I'm like, yeah, let's freaking do it. So I was always pumped on it. Like, swimming was always like my best friends of my life are all swimmers. You just like form bonds through, in triathlon too, just kind of like endurance things or doing stuff that's hard, like with your best friends. So it was never, I just really used to love swimming like every day for a long number of years. I'd be like, oh, I can't wait to go to swimming and like race everyone today. And, even when I was like in high school too. So, I was destined to do it. And obviously my genetics were good. Like I was good when I was a kid. But yeah, I worked super hard at it, every day in and out, for so many years. But I really enjoyed it, and never then in college, you can lose that kind of love and stuff. And like when you do things for so long, but, I still love it now. And yeah, I kind of was destined for this path, I guess. Also, when you're a kid, like I was always competitive, and like winning is super fun. Like, so when you're doing something and you're like 5 or 6 or 8 or 10, and you're like, wow, I work hard, but I win. It's like, I'm going to keep doing this. Like, winning is hella fun. Like, it's one of my favorite things in life. So I'm still striving for that first professional triathlon win.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. So when you said like you said sometimes when college rolls around that, and I've heard this and lots of other swimmers, it seems to be that's kind of like the make or break, or there becomes this falling out of love with it. Did that happen at all for you?
Well, I didn't swim all 4 years at Cal. I swam like 2.5, and then it wasn't even the swim. Yeah, I guess you kind of fall. I couldn't give it my all anymore, and I just didn't feel like it anymore. And that's, and looking back, it's like some people at the time are like, oh, you can still make it. Like, just get through it. I'm like, I don't want to just get through this. Like, if I'm not enjoying myself, I'm going to stop doing this. But it really didn't have anything to do with like teammates and friends. I just didn't want it that bad. And then I kind of got into triathlon again a little bit. So I kind of found another outlet. But I have friends who like just grinded through all 4 years of college, and they like don't even touch the pool anymore, So I think it almost saved me a little bit. Like, if I had kept going and made it 4 years, I think I could have really been kind of burnt out, because it was such a competitive team. It's like when you're like just giving it your all, and you're just like, it's one of the slowest people on the team. It's like, when you're not like, and it was hard for me because I had been so good my whole life, and I went to this really competitive program, and it's like, I'm only 20. I'm like dealing with all these emotions of college. It's like, it's hard. Like, I'm used to like trying hard and winning and getting glory. And here I am just like kind of falling through the cracks a little bit because everyone here is so good. And you're just like, sometimes you don't even feel like you belong a bit. So yeah, I mean, it was never like I felt a lot of shame, kind of quitting the team, because not that many people did it. But actually after I did, like, people started quitting a little bit more.
Oh, really?
I think they thought like, oh, this is actually an option. Like, we don't have to suffer if you're not, getting through, like happily,
Yeah. So was that the main driving factor? Did one day you just decided, this is the day I got to be done?
Yeah, pretty much, I think. And I can't even put my finger on what really it was. It wasn't the environment. If you weren't going to give 100% and you just couldn't, if you couldn't give 100% every day, like you can't be in that environment because it's just like a full on encompassing, like you're training with Olympians, all of this. So if you're just like half-assing, or not half-assing it, it's almost disrespectful to everyone around you because they're giving it your all. So I just felt like I couldn't do that. And I kind of wanted to just like, do a little bit of triathlon, a little bit as well too, because I had done it a bit as a kid, and I thought, oh, let me just do this. It's a little less pressure and everything, and so it's just kind of a switch, I guess I made.
The shame you said you felt, do you feel like that was more self-inflicted, or was that due to like did you get respected differently or lack of respect after leaving the team?
I think it was mostly self. Like
Really?
all my friends were like support, everyone who's your buddy or like family is supporting you, Yeah. So I would say more like, how others view you. And that can always be, I feel like it's good to recognize that a little bit. So we have some like perceptive or, what am I trying to say?
Perspective.
Yeah, perspective.
Perceptive.
But then you can't like make your decisions based on that too, right? Like you need to be like aware how people view you a little bit, so you have some self-awareness. But if you're always just reacting to something or making decisions based on how others view you, then rather than like how you feel, I feel like it can be like a tough place,
Yeah. And I think even sometimes the opposite, or not the opposite, but the inverse can be true. It's like how we view ourselves can become how others view us, because if we're thinking a certain way, we start to act that certain way. I've had experiences in my own life where I thought for sure that, just it's kind of an embarrassing story, but this one time I thought for sure that this guy wanted me to kind of take over his company. And it was super clear in my mind. I kid you not. We were relatively close. He was a mentor. I was working for him doing XYZ. Anyway, one day I just felt like maybe I should make sure this is actually that reality. So I called him up, and it was super hard to ask this question. I was like, do you want me to do this and to take over it? And he's like, no, not at all. And I just realized that was super embarrassing, because one, I respected this guy a lot. Two, I thought of something that was totally not true. And I realized that, man, there's a lot of power in that, because had I continued to believe that and not challenge it, I may have gotten to a point to where whatever it is, I'm just only striving for that reality in my mind, and then it could happen, but at the cost of what relationships. But it's really important for me to figure that out, because I realized in a lot of areas of my life I was living in these false realities where I had kind of painted this picture of what I thought was going on, and sometimes it could enhance my performance at times, not necessarily athletically, but in the business environment. And then I realized wow, I think this is actually a problem that a lot of people struggle with, and how I think is going on in here kind of gives that external signal of, oh, maybe that's who Seth really is.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. They say that your perception is your reality a bit too, and that can definitely happen. That's interesting. That's kind of funny though.
Oh, it is so
no,
funny.
Dog. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, literally.
Oh, yeah, cool.
He's
Have
like
a good
40
one.
years.
See ya.
Yeah, he didn't even get that job until he was probably in his mid 50s. And here I am, I think at the time I was probably 23, 24. What a naive sucker.
Yeah, for sure.
Not to go too much of my story, but I'm curious for you, what was the youngest age where, when people were asking you, oh, Greg, what do you want to be when you grow up? Was it always oh, I'm going to be an Olympian, I'm going to be a swimmer?
Yeah, I think pretty young. I remember I had this fifth grade, oh, what you want to be when you grow up? And it was oh, I want to be in the NBA or an Olympic swimmer. I mean, I played basketball, but only up until fifth or sixth grade. But I wanted to be in the NBA, but I was oh, I want to be an Olympic swimmer or a professional triathlete. And if I don't make it in sports, I want to be a lawyer. I mean, that's what my dad does. He was a triathlete, and then he was an attorney. Okay. Dude, I had this crazy, it's just so ridiculous saying out loud, but I was such a confident kid. I wanted to be the first person, and this is probably when I was a teenager. I was I want to win the Tour de France, and I want to get a gold medal in the triathlon, and I want to be a swim Olympian, and I want to be the first person to ever do those three things. And it's just that's the craziest, what the fuck? Yeah, but it's It's you start. I feel like there's so many stories of people like, oh, I wasn't that good, and then I'm so surprised where I've been. I've always kind of thought I was like so good, so it's like it has been tough for me sometimes. When you're a kid and you're genetically talented and like you work pretty hard, like you succeed. But if you take, I didn't do triathlon and running for a number of years, and everyone gets better, then you come back. It's like it can be hard for sure. So even in my professional triathlete journey, it's like I'm always still trying to striving for what I think I can be. And it's hard to reconcile that sometimes, especially when you had this insane confidence as a kid. Like, I mean, winning the Tour de France and, getting gold medals in other sports too. I mean, that's crazy if you're thinking now looking back, but
no, you got to have those big goals. If there's no self-belief, I mean, a lot of those things do become impossible. Like there is a significant element. I don't know what the percentage of it is, if it's like, talent versus belief, but the mindset is usually tends to be the thing that sets people apart. And to have that old term that used to be used a lot, like BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, like you have to have those. Yeah. And if you don't, then, I mean, you really lack purpose, but motivation. So I dig it. So when are you going to start riding in the pro peloton? Is that after triathlon?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm going to do the Christian Blumenfeld. He gets his gold medal and then goes into the pro tour.
Yeah, exactly.
I probably ate some more blood bags, to do the tour.
Yeah. Who knows what crazy stuff they have nowadays, man.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, in the end, they're pushing the limits of what is legal or not. So there's definitely weird shit that goes on. That's for sure. Yeah.
So did you go to college at Berkeley also pursuing a legal degree?
No. It was all swimming at Berkeley, man. They just...
You just took some generals.
When you do a sport there, they're like, you just try to skate by. They like try not to do like too hard a class, and the advisors are all like, "Oh, don't do hard classes and stuff." So it's not. It's an interesting way to. Yeah, it's like it wasn't always as clear academically. Like you didn't quite know the direction because the advisors sometimes were just giving you like kind of bad advice, like. Oh, you want to do biology or you want to go to med school? Like, oh, take this class. And it's like some super easy physics class that no one who actually majors in biology would ever do. And like, yeah, do this first. And it's just like, looking back, it's like, yeah, it was a weird, Berkeley's an interesting place. It's so big, and there's so many athletes there. And when I signed my letter of intent, I had applied to some other schools, a couple Ivy League schools and things. They're like, oh, take the SAT if you haven't. I'm like, yeah, I've been applying to colleges. Like I've taken the, like,
obviously
that's who they're dealing with. Like, maybe like some football and basketball players. But it's like, oh, maintain a 2.0. And like, so it's just like, once you sign, like I could have just signed and just said whatever and basically skated through the rest of high school. I didn't. If you're that good at sports, or like you sign at a big school, like it's so easy to just like get in. Meanwhile, like to actually get into Berkeley on your own is like very difficult, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting vibe out there for sure.
Where does this is going to be a really ignorant question, but where does the funding come for those universities to then pour into the athletic programs? Because it seems like that's the driving force of enrollment.
Yeah. Like. I don't know where like the money really comes from, I guess. I mean, there's like definitely donors and things like that, but then there's like scholarship limits, it's because it's equal between men and women. But then you get the whole like boosters thing in football, and then like that's when like the shady deals or like kids are getting paid under the table, right? Because like you want kids to sign, but you only have X amount of money to give them. And now with the whole NIL, I'm sure it's way different, but yeah, our team had like 9 full scholarships or something, or 9.9, and we had a 30-person team. So, some people would get close to it, and some people were on, like I was on a book scholarship, so it's like a couple $1,000s a year. But it's kind of equal across the board. It's called Title IX, so it's like all equal. But yeah, I don't really know where the root cause the university obviously sponsors it a bit. Through enrollment, and then maybe like some donations and things. NC2A, like shit, I don't even know.
It's a public university. Yeah, I'm just Googling it. So it looks like there are a variety of sources, including taxpayer money with the government, but tuition, state support, some grants, gifts, investment income. So I'm sure it's a bunch of different stuff. They probably have a huge endowment as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Imagine. Yeah, that's interesting. So moving forward a bit in your story, like a few minutes ago, you were saying that you realize now, or you were kind of just stating this as a fact, that you can't let self-worth be defined by performance. When did you learn that lesson or start to have that lesson?
Yeah, I mean, probably started in college a little bit, but I feel like you have to keep learning that type of lesson too, especially if you stay in athletics. I think I've learned it a lot in the last 3 or 4 years, kind of doing the pro triathlon thing, because I've had some times where it's like been super tough, not doing as well as I want, and especially when you put yourself so much of it into this build for a race or whatever it is. It's like, I would say it really probably a couple years ago, even like Indian Wells, maybe in like 2023, like I did so bad there, and I was like, I think I'm gonna quit, man. Like I'm just not that good, and it kind of sucks. But I end up running, like in the race, like I let out the water like I usually do, and on the bike I just was getting like just dominated, and I was having like the worst headspace I've ever had. And when I got on the run, my buddy Mike Arashida caught up to me, and he's like, hey, let's run together. And I was like, like I almost wanted to be like, nah dude, like I'm going slow, like but then we ended up running the whole race together, and like it was almost a saving grace. Like we just talked the whole time, and like we were cheering on the other pros because we're like in 20th and whatever. We're just like, who cares? Like I ended up running my fastest 70.3 run that I've done to date too. So it's like, it was crazy how like, you're just tempoing, right? Like you can have a few words. It's not like we're just like lollygagging. We were still like just cranking out a tempo run, but it really, I feel like that almost saved me a bit because it was so fun. And then like we were cheering on others and interacting with fans and cheering with people. And like I finished the race being like, wow, that was actually really enjoyable. Although 30 minutes before I was like, I'm ready to quit this race and this sport. Like I'm done with it. So I still had to wrestle with that a little bit afterwards. And I'm like, let's give it another year. Just like have fun with it, train a lot, and, start preparing for life after sport. And whatever happens, it doesn't matter. Like, your loved ones loved you. Yeah. Your friends like you, and it's so yeah, I would say that was kind of like the cherry on top of like, you learned it a few times over the years, but at that moment I'm like, dude, this freaking doesn't matter at all. Like we're just doing triathlon. It's like it doesn't matter. Yeah.
So what are you chasing now? Because like before it seems more like, you said several times like you love winning. It's super fun. And obviously you're still pursuing that, but now there's like a different mental headspace centered around like, who Greg is, what makes him valuable. So what's keeping you going forward now? What is it?
Yeah, I feel like it's so cliche. Like when I was a younger athlete, I'd be like, oh, I just like want to affect people positively on the sport. I'm like, F that, bro. Like I'm here to win. I'm here to dominate. But it's like, that's kind of where my mind is set a little bit too. And, just like these relationships with pros that you've made over the last couple of years. And I just joined Real Tri Squad. We were out in Cozumel the other week. And like, Nick Chase is like, he's a really wise guy. And like, I just really loved some of the things he was saying, because he's just in the sport to like, give back a little bit. So I feel like that's kind of what I want to do. I just want to like have fun. It's like as cliche as that is, and just like laugh with the friends and try to enjoy the races, just because you never know when it's, I could have a catastrophic injury, in 3 months, it could all be gone.
Right.
But, and I think through that, you can probably have some of the best results you have. So I'm still down like nose to the grindstone. Like I want to be the best triathlete I've ever been when I show up to race this year, but it's almost like it doesn't matter too much what happens, but hopefully I can go into races and I do really enjoy like trying to get people faster at swimming or help triathletes too. So, I'll make fun of triathletes a little bit about swimming because they're all like with their watches and their gadgets and all that. And it's just funny, but I really do want to help people a lot. So it's like, I really enjoy that. And I really see myself kind of getting back on the pool deck when this is all over, maybe like coaching some college swimming or something like that. So I just want people to enjoy it. And triathletes hate swimming, it seems like, a lot. And I just really want them to love it because I love it so much. Mm-hmm. So I think that's hoping what I can do a little bit more this year as well. Like just help people enjoy that pool and that meditative state, I guess.
Yeah. Good source of motivation. I mean, there's a lot that you said there, but like enjoying swimming, you said I think you have said, or you believe that you can only get better at swimming if you enjoy swimming. So a lot of people do not enjoy it. And I have gone through seasons where I've like loved it. And then it's usually when I'm by myself, I'm like, oh, this isn't as great. Because there's not someone to look over at and be like, all right, I can edge them a little. I can get a little further ahead than them. So like, what is it that brings that enjoyment? Like, how do you teach people to find that?
Yeah, well, swimming with people is definitely a big one. And because swimming, it can be a little, I guess, boring, really. And if you're constantly thinking about like, oh, I have to swim this much more. Yeah, we all have those days. Mm-hmm. I just think for me now, how I get through it solo, I mean, everyone should strive to find swimming buddies. And I still have, find your master's team or find just one buddy that you can meet up with once a week. I think that's really big. But it's like this meditative state almost. We don't get to unplug that much these days. We got our phones, we got everything. So it's, like that's why I'm like, just forget the watch. You don't need to use your headphones. Like just try to get to a place where you can be alone with your thoughts for 30 minutes to an hour. And like you get through that. And it's like earning that dopamine a little bit. We have so many things that like you wake up and you read an Instagram thing that someone liked and you're like, ooh, that makes me feel good. But it's like earning it the old fashioned way. It's like, it's really powerful. So when you can get through a swim by yourself and just like, that was fine. It wasn't too bad. And I thought about how I want to approach this relationship a little bit better. I'm just like, what should I say in my swim thread later or whatever? But yeah, I like think about swimming a lot when I'm swimming. But yeah, I think it's that time to unplug. I think it's good to kind of be alone with your thoughts and hear the water and things like that. So that's how I try to enjoy it by myself. But definitely swimming with others and, having a workout that you can go through. I talk a lot about this on my Swim Sets by the Pool podcast with my buddy. That's why we give workouts that, keep you engaged and all this stuff, because it can all get monotonous. You do anything you have your dream job. It's like 3 months in, it might start sucking a little bit. Like you have to, that's kind of human nature, right? Anything amazing, it's like a relationship. 3 months in, like rainbows and ponies is over. You got to work. You got to get working now,
Yeah, no, that's a good point, man. Yeah. There's so many things that you said that I agree with. I think the biggest thing that kind of sticks out, though, is, being alone with yourself or being in the quiet. I mean, there's a lot of popular conversation going on right around now about, like, this whole meditation movement and mindfulness and whatnot. But what you're saying, like, the ability to be disconnected and just really, I mean, everyone says feel the water, but I think that a lot can be said too, like feel your body, like know what's going on in the water. Like to have that connection, you have to typically not be listening to music or, for me, it's watching the timer or heart rate monitor and my Form Swim goggles or whatever it is. Like, yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, swimmers, that's why they're so in tune with, that's why how they get so good. It's not like all this data that they grew up with. It's this like feeling of the water and just kind of this like, just kind of the love. And it's like, it's water is comforting. Like you push on it and like pushes back, but it's like, it's nice. Like, I don't know. I feel so
like
comforted when I'm in the water. Yeah. That's like hugging me, So I mean, it's like, I get it. If you didn't swim your whole life and you're 25 and you start, you're just going to feel like you're drowning. So yes, it took me a lot of years, and I was in the pool so young, and it's definitely an advantage. So I get it when people like it can be so frustrating and hard. So I'm not ignorant to that fact, and I know I come from a place where I can't quite understand that, but I try to, and I'm like, well, you got to get your mind right too. Like, hey, let's enjoy this process of learning to float and like, no one knows how to float that well. It's like, that's what you teach the person learning to swim when they're 4. Like, if you can't float and be comfortable and realize this water is like holding you up if you have air in your lungs, then that's kind of the baseline of the whole thing. It's just, it's like it's hugging you.
Yeah, 100%. No, I had a little bit of a different experience, but like, so I never like grew up swimming competitively, but our neighbors had a pretty big pool. And so we spent all of every summer day, eating watermelon and playing by the pool. And I mean, honestly, we tried to kill each other a few times, like just keeping each other under too long, or the girls will get mad at us, and you figure out how to like, okay, I need to relax and get out of this situation so I don't drown. So there was that, but I started picking up swimming when I was 24, 26, and I just having that little bit of experience with the water like helped a ton. Like, I don't consider myself a great swimmer, but it comes relatively naturally, and it's so fun when you start to figure out how to, like you said, let it push you back, and I don't know, just be one with the water. It's hard to explain, but I've come to the conclusion too, like sometimes for certain people, man, it's so hard for them to get it. It's just like you see certain people that they lack and not to be mean, but they lack just, I don't know, it's the genetics, but the mechanics to like throw a ball really well or skateboard really well, like get connected with the board, or whether it's cycling, it's the same way. Like
I'm not connected with the skateboard, that's for sure.
Yeah. So there's like these different things, and it's hard to teach that, and people can get really discouraged, because I remember when I first started getting into swimming, actually swimming laps, like the biggest thing I had to overcome was this feeling of panic when your face is under the water. And after you learn to deal with that and just relax, like everything kind of comes a bit more naturally, because you can always turn over, you can always stop, you can always take a breath. Unless you're in an Ironman race and someone punches you, I guess.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is like fear-based, and especially because the consequence of swimming it's big, right? I mean, there's not a ton of drownings in the local pool, right? But in the end, that it is almost like a fear of death, essentially. Because like if you swallow all that water, you will, and you know that. So it's like, to overcome that and the panic and the like, that's how they're breathing, and it's like, I get it, you'll never be comfortable. So it can be hard. And I mean, it's like riding your bikes. You were in New Zealand, like on those tiny roads, and the semi comes by. I'm like, this is so scary. Awful. Like, what am I doing out here? Like, so I mean, it's like that fear it comes back to a little bit.
Yeah, especially on cycling. When those things go by and they like, the wind sucks you into them, it's like the scariest thing ever, especially when you're going downhill with rim brakes, let me just say.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's definitely the thing. I ride a lot inside these days too. Just, it ends up, less stress, really. That's it. Yeah.
So, a few other things I want to touch on, but you mentioned that you have, joined the RTS, the Real Trash Squad, with Nick. How did you come into contact with them, and what led you to make that decision to like, I'm gonna be part of this team?
Yeah, well, I was kind of on, I was on Everyman Jack, it's largely an amateur team like the last few years. And Rich Viola, who started Everyman Jack, the company, and also started the Tri team, I've known him for a lot of years, and there was a few pros on it, and it was sort of a team, like sort of like, you don't live with these guys, and they're all over the country. So it's like sort of a team, right? But that kind of got disbanded, and I probably would have left the team anyway. It's just because most people aren't doing the same thing as you. So, there's not a bunch of pros, right? There's a few, like Justin, you've had him on the podcast, and Schaefer and stuff. But I just kind of reached out to Nick, and because I know Mark, and Mark Dubrick, obviously, you guys are buddies, and I just kind of reached out to Nick and was like, what is like, I don't really, like, what's the deal with all this? And we had just like one call, and I was like, oh, I'm like for sure joining. Like, it was kind of a no-brainer. Like, I kind of wanted to be involved in a community of like kind of like-minded people, and then you can also, there's like some support there too. I really just was trying to get that wetsuit sponsor, which I got on my own, like for Blue 70. And then it made sense because they're sponsored by Blue 70. So I got that on my own. So anything else that I was going to get this year was kind of like gravy on top of that. So, and now I realize I joined this, like, I knew Nick well, or not well, but now I know him like pretty well. And I'm like, I'm just like so blown away. Like, I didn't really know how awesome like this, like these people are on this team, and kind of the community that he's created. So I'm really looking forward to this year. I'm like staying with my parents and Mark and Lisa and Oceanside, and maybe I'll see you guys out at St. Anthony's again. And yeah, I'm really stoked on it. Like, I just talked to Nick like one time. I was like, oh yeah, Nick seems amazing. Like, of course I'm going to join this team. Like,
yeah.
And the thing about it is, for me, sort of mid-pack, like probably a little bit better than that now, but like social media, I work on it, but I'm not like this big person. So there's just not that much out there, man, for like guys like me. Like there's a lot of just like financial and like support, so Nick
pulls you guys
can
together.
help a little bit, and like I'll have some swim bonuses and like some pony bonuses for being on this team and with my Blue 70s too. So yeah, and he might be like, oh, in St. George we're going to get a big house, and we're like, the team can help subsidize some of the costs or things like this. So it's like a little more opportunity for pros, and especially pros like me, who there's not like, I can't get a bike sponsor or like a big kit sponsor. I mean, I could probably reach out and get a free kit from someone, right, or something, but no one's going to pay me money except some swim brand, because luckily I like started working on my swim content, because that's what Blue 70 was like, hey, we like your swim education side of it. I'm like, that's just the world we live in. It's really more reach and driven, unless you're at the top of the world, but I'm not. So
So what do you do other than like being a professional triathlete and the swim bonuses and stuff like that? What do you do for work, or do you have the opportunity to not have to work as much in terms of job?
For like the last 10 years, I was doing real estate appraising, nice. Kind of since college. And I had like worked full time doing it's just the same job. Yeah. When I moved out here like 18 months ago, my boss was like, yeah, you can keep your job. I was doing it kind of like part-time remote. And I knew it was going to like eventually kind of run its course, because it's just not the best job to do remote. And, I was focused on training and things like that too. So as of like last year, that's kind of like over. He hired someone local and stuff, so like that job kind of ran its course. So yeah, luckily I did do that for a number of years, so I have that to like fall back on. And I do some like swim coaching for people. So now it's like just kind of some swim coaching and triathloning these days. And nice. Then, I go to races too, and my dad always loves coming to the races. He's such a big triathlon fan, so it's like, I went to New Zealand on my parents' dime, and it's like, I can live. That's why I was like, oh, I got to get a little more serious. Like, I'm getting married and stuff. So it's like, I'm good for me at this moment. And then, yeah, I need to like kind of buckle down a little bit, maybe try to coach a few more people or find a little bit more income. Especially because I kind of just lost that like part-time income stream, at the end of the last year. Yeah. But yeah, just living the full pro life now, though. It's kind of nice. Yeah. So just do podcasting and training. Yeah,
well, keep working on it, man. The podcast, there's obviously value there. So
yeah,
it'd be sweet if that could like be your main thing, and then you could just train and focus for at least the foreseeable future.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Sweet, man. So, are you a spiritual person?
I would say I'm like spiritual, like with the earth. Yeah. I like, people like talk about gods and religion. I'm like, nah, the earth is like our God.
That's your God.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk to me about that.
Well, I don't know if I can like talk about it so much, but I just think that like, I don't know, we just live on this like crazy. And actually, I was on the trainer earlier, and I was watching Interstellar because we were talking about it at camp, and it's kind of that same thing. I kind of love the space explanation and like I think that helps you with your life a little bit too. Like, oh, we're insignificant. It always, like you don't get too boggled down in the little things. You can kind of just appreciate this like crazy journey that we call life a little bit on this like beautiful planet, and. Trail running off in the mountains is like, that's like my favorite thing to do, essentially, because you're just like out there like amongst the giants and, doing 14ers in Colorado and stuff. And I'm like, this is crazy. And you kind of never feel more alive than moments like where you're like humbled by like the sheer
majesty.
Yeah, majesty.
Size.
And size. That's what I was saying. Yeah. And it seems like you are too, right?
Spiritual? Yeah, so I would say so. I think everyone's spiritual. So I asked that question a little bit tongue in
Okay.
cheek. I think we all have like this innate desire wherever that wants to come, wherever that comes from, is like up for debate. I think for many people, but like I grew up in a pretty religious household in the sense that like I saw my parents. So it's interesting. We grew up in a very so the religion we were a part of, Christianity, specifically Seventh Adventism, is known to be pretty rigid, I think. But my parents were first generation, Christian / Adventist, and so I kind of grew up seeing like segments of our life where we were like really into it, and then another minute it's like, well, Dad's going out to the backyard and smoke some weed and drink some stuff, and so like I saw this battle that he had going on internally, and I don't have it all figured out by any means, but I did see that like the greatest value that he was able to give to others, and then the highest form of just him being in happiness was when he was quote unquote closer to God. So like I have done a lot of thinking and digging in that regard. Yeah, so like it's difficult though. Like I haven't come to a full on just like, oh, this is the way it is and has to be. I have like some pretty fundamental things that I believe that I think couldn't be changed unless I just like saw something or experienced something that just proved to be the absolute contrary. But yeah, so I definitely am. But I'm curious for you, like, I'm gonna ask this almost in like an assuming type of a way, but what about religion makes you uncomfortable, or that you're like, just it's not for me?
Yeah. My dad grew up in a Christian household, and he was pretty, like, they were pretty strict about it. I mean, to a degree. So like my grandmother was into it, and I guess it's from the outside in. Like I've never been super involved in religion, and I'll say this: there's a lot of people out there who are religious, and they're like really great people. So I think religion can bring you a lot of like, like treat your neighbor with respect, like that type of stuff, which I think is great. A lot of it though seems like it's kind of this is the way, and it's like no one knows, right? Like I'm always say, run away from people who pretend they have all the answers, because it's like they don't. And then also like, yeah, I mean, like, priests and stuff get like a weird rap, and like honestly, like
Catholic priests.
Yeah, and like there's like Catholic priests and stuff like that, and it's just like, I don't know, there's always like weird things that go on, and like I went to this like this is like a weird I know I always tell this story. It's not even that weird, but it's like I went to an Easter like sermon with my fiance and her family, and the priest is up there like saying like his sermon or something. He's like telling this story that's like made up, but he's like, oh yeah, there's a beautiful girl, and like, oh yeah, she's probably 17 or something. I'm just like, why did you have to say that, man? Like, why are you weird like that? I don't know. So it's like, that's like, and then it's like memes and things about stuff like that too, or whatever, like, and there's bad stuff that goes on. So it's like a little turned off. I mean, I know that's just one facet of it.
Yeah.
But I saw like Book of Mormon too, and it's like, that's super funny. And you're like, you kind of realize, I had took this class in college, and the professor was like, hey, I don't want to like step on anyone, but in the end, whoever started your religion like just kind of made it up. And I was like, oh, that's sort of true, I guess. But I do think it can bring positive things into lots of people's lives. So it's like but it also creates wars and things too, right? I mean, like massive wars throughout history. So
yeah, some of the best and worst things have been done under the guise of religion. I think at the end of the day, for me, it's like this quote I really love is, let others be the standard, or excuse me, let others be the witness for right and wrong, but never the standard of them. And going back to what you said about, the Catholic priest thing, obviously I'm not Catholic, so this is my opinion. But I think confession to another human, aside from it being like, hey, you know what, Greg, like I said, F you behind your back to our buddies, like that kind of confession, sure. But when you have a man who is forced to be celibate, sit in a box, and then have people come in of every gender, age, basically just tell them their deepest sexual problems, which is what a lot of us have, like, what the heck do you think is going to happen? First of all, it's like, and I don't take that from that's actually
that's a good point.
What's his name? Robin Williams does a great bit on it where he's
I
he
bet.
has this comedic skit, and it's like he's talking about that, and it's like that's totally true, because that's where I think it's so dangerous, and there's obvious issues with that with the Catholic Church, and just like, it's like, come on, you can't do that. Like, pray to God if you believe He hears you, and tell Him that stuff. And if you're affecting someone, like, apologize to that person. But no human is ever meant to sit in the place of an omnipotent, all-knowing creator, I would think. So yeah, that's definitely a problem.
That's an interesting point. I love this bit that Ricky Gervais does about religion and stuff, and it's like, he's like, oh, there's like 1,500 gods and people fight over them. He's like, oh no, you have to believe in my God. It's like, well, you don't believe in 1,400 gods, and I don't believe in either of those. Just and one more. Like, so we're really similar. I don't know. Just like, I obviously can't do it the justice, but it's like,
yeah.
He just pokes fun. That's why comedy is so great for that type of stuff too, because it's like, we just all got to take a step back. Like, if it's helping for you, that's great. We don't have to force it on anyone, and hopefully we can all just be good people, and we're all just trying to be happy, I guess, in the end of the day. So hopefully,
I'd say most people are. There's definitely some people who have it out to get others, but they are the very, very small minority, I would say, and it's crazy. Like, it just takes a little bit of yeast to rise that entire bit of bread and dough, so it's like it only takes a little bit to ferment and mess up anything, so it's crazy.
Well, especially in the social media age that we're in too. I mean, like, that type of stuff it creates engagement, or like, it's just the small factions. That's why when people are like, oh my God, it's like we're so divided, or, in this country or something. I'm like, yes, there's fringes, but they have loud voices, because that's what the internet is. It's like a bunch of trolls. So yeah, it's like, I think we're all probably closer together than might be portrayed out there. And yeah, I always just try to, it's like, I grew up in the Bay Area, very liberal place, and now I live in this kind of tight-knit community, and when the election came around, it's a bunch of Trump flags, but I'm like, look, there's good, like, there's a lot of good people I love over there, and there's a lot of good people you like over here, so it's like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's that crazy, I guess. I feel like most people are good and just want to like feed their freaking families and like have a few laughs.
Everybody loves their children, or most everybody loves their children. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I had a conversation the other day with the founder of Tri-Rig, Nick Salazar, and he's a really good guy, but he believes that like no one is moderate and everybody's on the fringe. So I thought that was interesting. I don't believe that. Like, I think that in a world where we live, where ad dollars are the thing that makes the world go round, anything on a screen, it's like, well, the things that are going to be most engaging are the Trump slept with a hooker, and that said that what we're going to talk about, or Kamala Harris said that, your life doesn't matter, or whatever. So like, that kind of stuff's going to get the clicks and whatnot. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, by and large, most people are just trying to figure it out. Like, if you present truth to them and it truly does ring true to them, then like, yeah, they're going to fall in line with whatever it is, whether it be the golden rule, like you're saying, or whatever. Yeah. So let me ask you.
That's a wise way to look at it. Yeah, for sure.
Well, we'll see if it's wise. I'm only 32, so everything could change by the time I'm 64.
Yeah, then you get all like fucking hunkered down in your ways again.
Yeah,
right?
rigid. Yeah. I hope that doesn't happen, but I've been asking myself recently, like, why does that happen? Like, what? Even people who I would say, like, maybe I would have met them in their 20s, they probably weren't that way, but it's just like our brains get to a place when we get older, when it starts decaying. It's like, well, I lose that neuroplasticity and the ability to change my mind, and you fired off these neurons so many times. I guess it's just hard to break the mold, but I hope that doesn't happen to me.
Yep, me too.
So let me ask you one more, like, of these spiritualish questions, if that's okay.
Of course. Yeah.
So when you die, what is the best case scenario in your mind? Like, what do you think will happen or could happen?
Best case scenario? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if I'm like somehow, like, I still have like a spirit or like some conscious a little bit, and I'm like part of the universe in some way, I think that would be like cool. Hopefully it's not like in like this bad state of like, where you're just stuck or something.
Yeah, but like Interstellar.
Yeah, like Interstellar, or like
you're stuck by the bookcase.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. But I don't know. And I feel like we're all just like these organisms on this one planet, essentially, that were created from something very small at one point. So it's like to think that we'll just like kind of go back out there and like still have this conscious or something or some form of me. I feel like that makes sense to me, right? And whether it's like my brain working as it is now, probably not, but I'm just excited to check it out, honestly.
Yeah.
No, I'm not excited, but I feel like people, I mean, we don't want to die, but I don't have, like, my fiance has just like such just like a fear of death. And it's like, yes, I don't want to die. And I think if I was if I was on a plane and it was crashing, I think I'd be really scared. But it's like, I feel like I could find peace at it. Like, we're just like a blip on the radar in this vast universe, right? So I feel like I could just go and be part of that again somehow in a different way. I don't know. Yeah.
That's a cool answer. I have wondered, it would be interesting to do a poll of like every single American or really any person in the world. Are you like to figure out, are you more afraid of dying, like the point where you're dead and beyond, or are you afraid of the passage to death? Because there are plenty of passages to death that I could think of that are horrifying. But in terms of
that's
like
what I'm more scared of, I think. Yeah,
I think so too. But I mean, I've had a couple like near death experiences where like, oh, this might be it. And yeah, like I haven't had like any of those crazy lights go out and I'm floating above my body situations. That's not what I'm saying, but I've come close enough to death to be like, okay, well, I may have to accept this. One actually happened not too long ago. Actually, I was in New Zealand with Mark and we were swimming in the ocean, and dude, I have swum in the ocean tons. Okay.
Wait, like so you were staying. You guys moved after Topa, right?
Yeah, so we were there and we went to Rotorua for a few days, and then we went to Mount Maunganui. I forget the name of the beach. It may have been that beach, but anyway, so we go out there, and like I said, I grew up going to the beach, grew up swimming. I consider myself a pretty good swimmer. In fact, I have prided myself on like, oh, I would never drown. I'd just like chill out or whatever. But dude, like,
oh man,
I got sucked out suddenly. Like we were moving really quick, and I was like, oh man, we're in the rip current. I was like, well, I'll just kind of swim sideways and chill out. But the waves were such that they were barely just starting to cap on me, and like the panic started to set in. And I was like, I said it calm. I said, Mark, you're probably gonna have to come save me. And he's like, what? And he like swam out there, and we were out there for a while, and we finally made our way back in. But I realized in that moment, I was like,
oh shit.
I had a few seconds where I was like, this actually might be it. And my poor wife, like, I'm gonna sit here and like drown doing something stupid because I was gonna go play in the waves. But really, at that moment, I realized is like panic is such a dangerous thing. Because once you let that set in, like, and it takes hold, it's like you're hyperventilating, your heart rate goes up, your muscles could lock up. It's actually crazy too, man. Like, literally days after that, Mark had left, but I went to go do this crazy mountain hike thing where I was going to climb this, I forget, it's like Mount Ofo or something, but it was like, it's supposed to be 13 miles long and like 7,000 feet of elevation gain, really steep uphill and back around, and you drop down. So I get up there, and I had it on my GPS, although the map wasn't loaded, but I had the line on my watch. So I get up there, and I'm coming down the backside, and dude, it was so steep. And just like, I'll have to send you a picture of my shoes. Maybe I'll put it in the podcast, but like they got serrated because I was going down and like all this silty, like, but underneath that was like these super sharp rocks. It like ripped the heels right off my shoes.
Holy moly.
Anyway,
dude.
I only planned for 3.5 hours. I was out there for 5.5. And again, like, I was standing still. I had been bouldering down this river for like 5 miles, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot. And my heart rate was like 180, and I was just standing there, dude.
Oh my God.
I was like, this might be the end again. So I don't know what's been going on lately.
New
I've been
Zealand,
having these kind
man. You got to get out of there.
I know, seriously.
No, but it's like, that's why, you talk about spiritual, like the earth, like, yeah, the earth as your God. It's
it
like,
can end you.
Right? And I've had some, like, I remember when I went out in these crazy waves one time in Santa Cruz. I'm like, I was 20 and like we were on the beach and I was drinking. I'm like, I could do anything. Like, but I went out there and like you weren't even supposed to swim, and like I just was riding this wave, and I just remember like this crazy rip or like cross current came and like just tore my shoulder basically out of its socket, and like I tore my labrum, like micro tears, and I still have these micro tears in my labrum. I never needed surgery, but like I could never swim butterfly the same way again after that, because like I can't like land with like my thumb down, extension. Like, so I have to have like, that really hurts my, like, you know, a lot of butterflies, they come around and their thumb enters first, but like, and that's how I swam, but I couldn't do it anymore. And I was like, oh dude, like the ocean, you cannot mess around with the ocean no matter how good a swimmer you are. And the same thing in the mountains too. Like I was in the Tetons once and I was like in this exposed area and this like lightning storm rolled in and I was just like, dude, am I about to die? Like I just felt like I was like, oh my God, like I'm so scared. Like I could just die out here, right?
Yeah, you're
you
on
know?
the verge. Yeah. So, those kind of experiences will definitely sober anybody up, I think, and to realize what's really important in my life right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't underestimate Mother Earth. She'll keep you humble.
Yeah, 100%. So let me ask you this. For you, you have done a lot of things that I think many would consider to be success. You may not necessarily feel that. Maybe you do. I don't really know, but I'd be curious to know. But how has the definition of success changed over time since you've kind of gone through these different deaths and rebirths into sport and now triathlon?
Yeah, I feel like when I was younger, my view of success was always based on how I thought others like viewed me a little bit, you know, like, oh, you're so good at this and this and this. And like, I wanted to like almost perform for others, maybe not as much as yourself. But now that I'm like a bit older, it's like, I don't know. Now that I've like kind of found like my partner and everything, I'm like, I feel success. Like like if, you know, we're healthy and we have a great family and like I'm here with this, like my best friend and the woman that I love, like that's like my success, and everything else is like, kind of extra. And that's the whole thing about the identity as an athlete too. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like she's so proud of me no matter what. Like she's like, you got 13th, like incredible. And I'm like, what the fuck, 13th? But it's like, I feel like that's the success that I found. And I feel like success is like keeping your friendships good, you know, with your friends, and like just being a good like sibling and friend. Like that's like how I view my success, and like just being happy. So it's like, it's so different than what it once was. And yeah, as an athlete, obviously you want to be really good, but I kind of, when I got back into the sport, I had this, like, I want to get on like world championship level start lists, you know, like I just want to compete against the best. And I did do that last year, making worlds, and I would love to do it a bit more, but that's like, I've kind of checked the box, I thought, you know, because I really had to taper my expectations when I was coming back in. I was like, let me just try to get to the top level and compete. And I've kind of done that a bit. And I've been a part of the race. And I think generally most of the pros respect me as like a solid athlete, and obviously a really great swimmer. So that's kind of success in my eyes. And I feel like that's how it's changed over time. But in the end, it's like athletics is like, it ends, you know, when you're, and you can always do it recreationally, but in terms of professionally. So the success, I feel like, is with your like family and friends, and like just like being a good partner, you know, and having someone love you their whole life and through the good and bad. Like that's kind of like success for me, I guess.
Do you think it's possible for somebody to have that perspective without kind of the negative experiences that need to be, or sometimes are had before that comes to like, oh, this is the value I hold in success?
Yeah, I feel like kind of not. You know, you can give a lot of, I had to give this talk to the Cal Triathlon team when I was helping out at their camp. You know, my dad coaches that team, and I was giving a talk. But, you know, I remember when I was that age, it's like you can listen to things, or, you know, from people who are older than you, but you kind of have to make the mistakes yourself to really learn, I feel like, or, you know, make those choices. And I feel like you can pick up small things, but you kind of have to, I feel like you know, failure is the best teacher, right? I feel like that really does ring true for a lot of things. It seems like maybe you have a similar thought, but
yeah, I say so. I mean, I think all of us will always, who care about humanity or care about the younger people coming up in the world behind us, will always give the talk of like, hey, look, you don't have to do life this way. And I think that there are some experiences that can be avoided to learn a lesson. Just hopefully you taste it in a small enough dose that it really rings true. For example, like doing hard drugs, for example. You can try some of the smaller and easier stuff, and sometimes people can walk away from it. But sometimes it's like, oh yeah, well, they tried this, it was laced with fentanyl, and like they almost died or they did die. So it's like, you can learn the lesson, I think, in different ways, at different severities. But sometimes, man, like me, I've got an incredibly thick skull, and I knew a lot of these wisdoms that people had kind of imparted to me, and I went out and ended up having to bash my head against the wall a few times before I realized, like, oh yeah, that's gravity. That's how that works. If I hit my head on the wall, it will bleed. Interesting, fascinating. So yeah, it just depends, I think, on the person. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I like that thing you said about like the small dose. Like hopefully you can get just a tiny dose and it rings and you can make a change, and it hasn't this macro dose. And like you talk about drugs, it's like, my friend group going through, like most of us made it out unscathed, but I had a close buddy who OD'd, 6 years ago. So it's like, sheesh. Yeah, I mean, there's all, if you have a group of friends or something and you go through and you like, push the limits of something, someone might not make it through, and like one of my good buddies, he kind of has this other friend group, and there's these big float days in California, like Floatopia at these college towns, and everyone's just crazy. Yeah, he ended up drowning at one of them. So it's like they all kind of. Well, it's like this was at I think this was in Chico. They're basically like massive river float days where a bunch of college kids show up like in tens of thousands. And there's one called like Floatopia. It's in like Santa Barbara. I think they kind of stopped doing them because they can. People were when you get that many people in a close space and there's a bunch of alcohol and stuff and inner tubes that deflate and things and there's moving water, like things can happen. So yeah, it's like, they all mostly made through unscathed, but someone didn't. And it's like, wow. It's like, that's a tough lessons to learn and hard lessons.
Yeah, for sure. Since your buddy like OD'd and you've learned some of these hard lessons, like, do you feel like you live your life a little bit differently? Or just solidified some of the things you already knew?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I had kind of moved on a bit already from that, like when maybe he was still struggling. But I feel like it challenged me to like really not shy away. People are hurting, so it's like you kind of got to see that sometimes. And I don't know, I feel like I wasn't the best friend to him in the last like year or two because he was just kind of being like. Yeah, a little bit, whatever. So yeah, it's tough, and you can I always try to give the people the benefit of the doubt, and just they're not trying to be a certain way, like they're just trying to live essentially.
Yeah, they're just trying to figure out. Sometimes you get stuck in a really big rut.
Yeah, and it's hard to get out. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So be careful where you drive that dirt bike. Don't get stuck in the ruts.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Greg, you are quite a cool dude. When I was writing up these questions and wanting to connect with you, I'm always making micro judgments. So I'm looking on Instagram, and we had a little bit of interaction, and I was like, who is this guy? He's like making the jokes, picking at triathletes and whatnot. I didn't take you to be such an incredibly deep thinker, so I really appreciate you
that's so
proving
nice
that
of you
wrong.
to say.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you taking the questions in stride and opening up about your life. I'd love to have you on again another time, but I wish you all the best for this year and for taking that opportunity to share what's going on upstairs is, I think, really valuable, not only to me, but to other people. So
it's like a therapy session, dude. So yeah, it's all free too. No, exactly. No, I appreciate it. And yeah, keep trucking. And yeah, I'm glad I got to know you a little bit better too. Yeah, hopefully we can have some good times at, races this year. I'm doing all Mark's race schedules. I know you guys are tight, so maybe we can all have a beer after a race or something as well. That'd be fun. Yeah.
We'll see. I'm considering St. Anthony's because that's it's just so far from California, and I'm like, do I want to spend $500-$600 on a plane ticket?
Well, you're not going to do Oceanside or anything, or are you?
No, I'm not going to be doing Oceanside. So I actually don't race on Saturdays, and I'm pretty sure that one's on Saturday.
Oh, okay. Right? Yeah, it's a Saturday one. Yeah. Interesting. All right, cool.
Yeah, but I'm sure we'll be at some of them for sure.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, good chat. We'll be in touch.
For sure, man. Thanks.
Peace.
Just want to say thank you so much to Greg for coming on the podcast and sharing a bit about his life and going through the questions with me, even ones that may have been a little bit uncomfortable. I always appreciate going deep with people, and Greg did just that. I want to leave you with a few words of the takeaways when asking Greg, how his definition of success has changed over time. I think at the end of the day, really what he was saying as well is that family and friends are what matters most. If we're doing things for happiness and truly enjoyment, the enjoyment of those things, then you can't go wrong. But if anything else gets in the way of that, then ultimately, I don't think that leads to a happy place. Make your own conclusions, get out there and give it a shot. But thank you so much to Greg for sharing his perspective. If you made it to this point in the podcast, though, just want to say thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here. You know the spiel, all the ways that you can listen and watch this podcast. If you could like, comment, subscribe, review, sign up for the newsletter at the stupidquestions.show website, any of those things, any and all of those things do continue to help grow the podcast. And I appreciate you for it. I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya.